I remember the exact smell of the room that afternoon. Stale carpet cleaner mixed with the burnt edge of cheap coffee, blending together into a scent I had always associated with family meetings that never ended well for me. Even before I sat down, I could feel the shift in the air, the way everyone looked at me with that same familiar mixture of disinterest and barely concealed judgment. My father sat at the head of the long wooden table like he was presiding over some royal decree, my mother beside him wearing a thin smile that stretched too tightly across her face, the one she saved for moments when she felt victorious, even if she never said it aloud. And then there was Ryan, my older brother, my lifelong rival, the golden child who never failed to bask in approval that seemed to flow toward him as naturally as air fills a room. He leaned back in his chair with the confidence of someone who believed the meeting was just a formality, that decisions were already made long before I walked in. His arms were crossed, and that annoying little smirk, God, that smirk, sat plastered on his face like it had been waiting there all morning. "Glad you finally made it," my father said, though he didn't bother to look directly at me. His tone was clipped and dismissive, as if my presence was optional, a formality, an afterthought. We were just discussing the inheritance that I felt those words ripple through me like a chill. 8 rental properties. 8 properties my grandmother had spent decades building, managing, repairing, pouring her life into piece by piece. She had loved me deeply, in ways that were obvious even to people who barely knew us, and yet somehow, ever since she passed, the people who claimed to share my blood seemed determined to pretend that love never existed. They weren't just dividing property. They were dividing legacy, power, respect, and identity. It wasn't just real estate. It was everything she had worked for, everything she had wanted to leave behind. I pulled out the chair and sat slowly, trying not to show the tightening I felt deep in my chest, the growing awareness that something was off. Ryan tapped a stack of papers against the table, aligning the edges dramatically before speaking, like he thought he was the star of some business documentary. "Let's make this quick," he said, flipping through spreadsheets and printouts that he clearly thought made him look important. "Dad and Mom agree that I'll handle all 8 properties. You don't really have the temperament for it." The casual cruelty of it hit me like a slap I'd already grown used to. A few of my aunts and cousins murmured their agreement the way sheep bleat in unison, leaning in toward Ryan like he was some beacon of competence. Even my father, who had barely taught me anything about business growing up, glanced approvingly at him. I stayed quiet, breathing in slowly, letting the words sit in the air. Silence had always been my tool. While everyone else filled conversations with their assumptions, I used silence like a mirror. It forced them to hear themselves clearly, and that alone made them deeply uncomfortable. Ryan continued his little performance. "I've already been managing them for 2 years anyway. It just makes sense for everything to come under my oversight officially. Dad says it's the logical choice." My father nodded as if Ryan had just presented a flawless business pitch, pride radiating off him like heat. "We all know Ryan is responsible," he added. "He's business-oriented. He's proven himself. It's only natural he handles the inheritance." "Handles," he said, as if the decision was done, as if the properties had always belonged to Ryan, as if I were an unnecessary witness to my own erasure. That word echoed in my mind, handles. It meant control, power, ownership, and once those keys were in Ryan's hands, the entire family would act like that had always been the truth. My chest tightened again, but not with panic. No, this time it was something heavier, sharper, something like betrayal coated in disappointment. But I kept my posture loose, my face unreadable. I had learned long ago that showing emotion in front of my family was a mistake. They didn't comfort weakness, they preyed on it. Ryan's smirk widened, glowing smugly with expectation. "So yeah," he said, spreading his arms like he was welcoming applause. "You're not getting any properties, Tegan. It's better for everyone." Everyone. That word again. Somehow in their minds, everyone never included me. I wasn't part of the group. I was the outlier, the inconvenience, the silent presence they wished they could edit out of the family portrait. But I leaned forward slightly, folding my hands calmly on the table. "Before we finalize anything," I said in a low, steady voice, Are you sure this is the arrangement you want to stand by? The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. My father snapped his gaze toward me. My mother's smile faltered. Ryan's eyebrows knit together in irritation. They weren't used to me challenging anything. Not directly, not calmly, not with that tone. Something in my question froze them in place, like they sensed there was a layer of meaning they hadn't anticipated. What exactly are you trying to imply? Ryan asked, standing taller, voice tinged with annoyance rather than fear, but his body language betrayed a flicker of uncertainty. I didn't look away. I mean that once I speak, I said softly, everything changes. The silence that followed was heavy and absolute. For a moment, nobody dared to breathe. It felt like I had detonated a small truth in the center of the table, and they were all still too shocked to react. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't lean back smugly. I didn't smile. I simply let the tension settle because they needed to feel it. They needed to understand there was something they hadn't accounted for, something they didn't control. 2 years earlier, my grandmother had called me to her bedside during one of her last lucid days. The light in her room had been soft, filtered through the lace curtains she loved so much, and her frail hands had trembled slightly as she clasped mine. But her eyes, those warm, sharp, knowing eyes, had been steady, painfully steady. "Tegan," she whispered, "you're the only one who listens, the only one who doesn't take what I built for granted." I felt my throat tighten then, just remembering all the nights I stayed with her, helping her sort rent receipts, repair broken curtain rods, check on tenants who needed assistance. She and I had done the real work. She knew it and I knew it. "I need to know my properties will be safe," she said. "What do you mean?" I asked, my heart pounding with worry. She reached into her bedside drawer and pulled out a thick, sealed envelope. The weight of it felt heavy in my hands, heavier than paper should feel. "This," she said, tapping the front of the envelope, "is my real will." I stared at her, stunned. She continued, "Your father thinks he deserves to inherit everything, but he didn't help me build it. Neither did Ryan. You did. You were there when I needed you. But why not tell everyone?" I asked, her eyes softened. "Because they won't listen, and they won't accept it. Not until the moment is right, and you will know when that moment comes." She had given me a trust far heavier than property ownership, a trust wrapped in loneliness, truth, and her belief in me. Now, sitting in that conference room, surrounded by relatives tasting victory before the fight even began, I realized this was the moment she meant. This was exactly the situation she had prepared me for as they bragged about management strategies, rental income, property taxes, and future plans that didn't include me at all. I had spent the last 2 years quietly checking on the properties, monitoring repairs, speaking to tenants discreetly. I kept an eye on everything because I knew one day I would need this information. I knew Ryan had been skimming rental income, pocketing small amounts here and there. I knew he ignored maintenance requests. I knew he lied to my parents about repairs. I knew he bragged online about running the family empire, posting selfies in front of duplexes he barely visited. I gathered evidence meticulously, not for revenge, but because my grandmother had trusted me to protect what she'd built. But today, all that evidence felt like loaded ammunition. And now, listen closely because this is the part people forget. Most people think they need more motivation, more hype, more fire, more speeches. But look around you, motivation is everywhere. Every reel, every post, every short video is trying to motivate you. And yet, people are more stuck, more lost, more confused than ever. Why? Because motivation was never the problem. Motivation is a spark. But mastery is the engine. And the engine matters more than the spark. You've had sparks before. You've had nights when you said, "Bah, Kalesi Badal Jonga." You've had mornings when you woke up ready to conquer your whole life. But what happened? The spark died. The fire faded. And you went back to old habits, old routines, old cycles. This is the war every human faces. The war between who they are and who they want to be. And this war is not won by excitement. It is won by execution. It is won by repetition. It is won by the boring, unsexy, invisible work that no one sees, but everyone eventually feels. Because mastery does not announce itself. Mastery is slow. Mastery is silent. Mastery is the daily decision to rise even when your mood falls. Mastery is the discipline to practice when no one is watching. Mastery is the courage to keep going when your progress is invisible. Mastery is the refusal to negotiate with excuses. Let me tell you something life-changing. You don't become unstoppable by feeling good. You become unstoppable by doing good work even when you don't feel like it. Emotions are waves, sometimes they rise, sometimes they crash. But discipline is a shoreline. It does not move. It does not break. It does not depend on the weather of your feelings. You see, the people you admire, the successful, the confident, the elite, they did not build their lives on motivation. They built their lives on mastery, on consistency, on the decision to show up long after the mood left. This is why some people grow fast and others stay stuck for years. Because the stuck person keeps waiting for the right day, the right inspiration, the right opportunity. But the person on the path of mastery creates their own opportunity by moving, learning, correcting, and repeating endlessly. Mastery is not a moment. It's a lifestyle. And once you embrace it, your life changes in ways motivation could never deliver. Because when you aim for mastery, you become harder to distract. You become harder to discourage. You become harder to break. Your mind becomes sharper. Your habits become stronger. Your standards rise. Your vision expands. Your inner voice shifts from fear to certainty. This is when you become dangerous, not to others but to your old self, your old limitations, your old story. Because suddenly, you stop needing permission. You stop needing approval. You stop needing to feel ready. You stop needing motivation to push you. Why? Because now your identity is pushing you. Because you no longer see yourself as someone who tries. You see yourself as someone who executes, someone who persists, someone who masters. This is the real evolution, not when your circumstances change, but when you change. And when you step into this level of self-mastery, the world begins to bend toward your decisions instead of your doubts. Every great achiever in history understood this. From inventors to athletes, from philosophers to entrepreneurs, from thinkers to warriors. They were not the most motivated people. They were the most consistent. They were the ones who kept practicing when everyone else quit. They were the ones who stayed when everyone else left. They were the ones who took the path of discipline while the world chased the path of comfort. And let me tell you a truth very few people are willing to accept. Comfort is the killer of greatness. Comfort makes you slow. Comfort makes you blind. Comfort makes you forget who you could have been. But mastery wakes you up. Mastery forces you to confront your weaknesses. Mastery demands that you grow. Mastery pushes you beyond your excuses. It doesn't care about how tired you are. It doesn't care about how busy you are. It doesn't care about how scared you are. It simply asks, did you show up today? Because transformation is not built on intensity. Transformation is built on consistency. Show up enough times, and the world has no choice but to move for you. Show up enough times, and the skill that once felt impossible becomes natural. The routine that once felt heavy becomes automatic. The path that once felt confusing becomes clear. This is the magic of mastery, the magic of choosing long-term power over short-term feelings. And the moment you embrace this mindset, your results accelerate, your confidence grows, your energy rises, your self-respect multiplies. Because nothing builds self-respect like keeping promises to yourself. Nothing builds inner power like doing the work you said you would do. Nothing builds greatness like repeating greatness. You start walking differently, thinking differently, working differently, living differently, because your identity has shifted. You are no longer the person chasing motivation. You are the person creating momentum. You are no longer controlled by moods. You are guided by mission. You are no longer waiting for power. You are building it every single day. This is what separates the dreamers from the achievers. This is what separates the average from the exceptional. Is what separates the average from the exceptional. This is what separates the person you were from the person you are becoming. And now, the world will have to adjust to your new version. The version built on discipline, consistency, resilience, and mastery. Because mastery, true mastery, does not begin with the world outside you. It begins with the world inside you. People think success comes from strategy, money, luck, or opportunities. But every master knows the truth. Success begins in the quiet corners of the mind where no one else can see. Before you master a skill, you must master your focus. Before you master a craft, you must master your habits. Before you master the outer world, you must master your inner world, your thoughts, your emotions, your beliefs, your response to failure, your discipline. Because the mind is the command center of your life. It decides what you chase, what you avoid, what you tolerate, and what you become. Most people never reach their potential because they never learn to control the one thing that controls everything: their mind. They start things with excitement, but abandon them the moment their emotions shift. They search for motivation, but avoid the discomfort that shapes greatness. They want change, but resist the discipline required to create it. But you are not most people. You are here because something inside you refuses to settle. Something inside you is tired of temporary motivation and ready for permanent transformation. Something inside you is waking up, a voice that whispers, "I am capable of more. I am meant for more. I am ready for more." This inner voice is not here to hype you. It is here to guide you. Because mastery does not come from noise. It comes from clarity. And clarity begins with the question, what kind of person do you want to become? Not what do you want to achieve. Not what do you want to have. Not what do you want to feel. Those are results. Those are outcomes. The real question, the one that changes everything, is, who must you become to live the life you desire? Because goals don't create transformation. Identity does. When you see yourself as disciplined, your behavior matches discipline. When you see yourself as consistent, your actions follow consistency. When you see yourself as someone capable, your mind unlocks capabilities. When you see yourself as someone destined for greatness, you start moving like someone who deserves it. This is why motivation fades, but mastery transforms. Motivation asks, what do I feel like doing today? Mastery asks, what needs to be done today? Motivation relies on mood. Mastery relies on mission. Motivation is about inspiration. Mastery is about identity. Motivation makes you excited. Mastery makes you unstoppable. Because once you decide the kind of person you are, your actions naturally align. A lion does not need motivation to hunt. A warrior does not need motivation to fight. A creator does not need motivation to build. Their identity commands their behavior. And once you shape your identity, you shape your destiny. This is where the real shift begins. You stop negotiating with excuses. You stop delaying your potential. You stop waiting for permission. Because now you understand. Discipline is freedom. Consistency is power. Mastery is destiny. And every master, every elite performer, every top 1% human, they all share one secret. They do not rise to the level of their goals. They rise to the level of their habits. It is your habits that carve your future. Your habits decide your energy. Your habits shape your mindset. Your habits determine your success. You don't need to change your life overnight. You just need to change the way you show up today. Tomorrow will take care of itself. Because mastery is built one choice at a time. One repetition at a time. One disciplined moment at a time. And with every choice you are casting a vote. A vote for the person you want to become. A vote for the life you want to live. A vote for the future you want to create. No one sees these votes. No one applauds these votes. But eventually, the world sees the results. That is why the path of mastery is not crowded. Because most people do not want to be consistent. They want to be comfortable. Most people do not want to grow. They want to stay the same. Most people do not want to sacrifice. They want success without the cost. But you are different. You are stepping into a life where your standards are higher. Your purpose is stronger, your vision is clearer, and your commitment is unshakable. You are not waiting for motivation. You are building momentum. You are not relying on luck. You are relying on discipline. You are not hoping for change. You are creating change. This is the mindset of mastery. This is the mindset that turns ordinary people into extraordinary achievers. This is the mindset that reshapes destinies. Mastery becomes your quiet companion, the voice in the back of your mind that refuses to let you shrink into the person you used to be. And as you move forward, day after day, something starts to shift. Not in your circumstances, but in you. You begin noticing the small moments where the old you would have quit, and the new you simply keeps going. You notice the moments where you would have doubted yourself, but instead, you steady your breath and take another step. You begin to realize that discipline isn't a burden. It's a form of self-respect. You begin to realize that discipline isn't a burden. It's a form of self-respect. Consistency isn't punishment. It's self-belief in motion. And every time you choose the harder path, the stronger path, the path aligned with who you want to become, you gain a new kind of power. Power that can't be bought. Power that can't be faked. A power that cannot be taken from you. Because once you master your mind, no one can control your life.